Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today at your pushback channel. So let's do some pushing back against those crazy SJWs and those mad political elites. And while you're with us, please take a moment to subscribe below, and to receive notifications of all our essays, please remember to click the bell symbol below. Thank you for watching, and we hope you find this essay informative. This essay considers the issue of how successfully some immigrants are integrating into Western culture and others not so much. At a recent barbecue, I was talking to a fifth-generation immigrant whose antecedents had arrived to a Western English-speaking country 120 years ago from a very poor and very populous region of the planet made up of deeply religious tribes and widely dispersed small villages. His 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter came over to where we were, and the son uttered a common expression, so I playfully mentioned to the father how very Euro-Western the children were. The children, however, indignantly snapped back with a defensiveness unusual for children of that age, that they were not Euro-Western at all, but identified wholly with their genetic heritage, which for these children is 6 whole generations ago. The mother made approving noises, stating that every generation they would bring in a wife and a husband from the mother country as partners for the locally Western-born children, so as to maintain their genetic and attitudinal purity. Further, that the children till the age of mid-20s would be taken to the mother country each year so they would never forget their genetic roots. A small number of children, she said, do become westernised, electing to integrate with the local population, but these were alleged to be a tiny minority and were typically excluded from the family and the group as punishment for such social waywardness. In terms of migrants to the West, it is not a uniquely American, Canadian, German, French or Australian issue. Many migrants to Britain who were born of migrant parents in the early 1950s and who are now fourth generation British-born still do not see themselves as British. Turkish migrants or guest workers to Germany in the 1950s, also at third and fourth generation German-born, many still see themselves as Turkish. Similar observances can be made today of, say, Algerian migrants to France in the 1950s. Moreover, this is not an issue of white acceptance of immigrants, as is frequently and erroneously claimed. Indian immigrants to Fiji from the early 1880s, that's from over 130 years ago, still see themselves as Indian after 6 or more generations being Fijian-born. Fiji is particularly illustrative in regards to racial integration and its assumed challenges and probabilities. To the present day, and following 4 generations or more of being Fijian-born, Indians still spoke Indian to one another, still worshipped the same Indian gods, dressed and ate as Indians, and married only other Indians, and insisted on Indians-only parliamentary representation. After almost 140 years of Indians being in Fiji, assimilation is minimal, and those whose origins are from the subcontinent still see themselves as a separate and culturally superior society. Without even judging the merits or otherwise of this pointed determination not to integrate, young Indian men and women have been offered the opportunity to be repatriated to India for free at the taxpayer expense, but with effectively no takers. Almost no one wanted to go. They did not want to integrate, yet wanted to stay genetically homogenous Indian, but did not want to return to India, yet at the same time believed all others were being racist towards them, while they were not racist in any way by refusing or not wanting to integrate. This migrant perspective is the challenge all societies, and particularly Western societies, have going forward, of not only integrating existing migrant populations, but how to select and integrate any future immigrants. Second or third generation Western-born from Middle East migrants are still sending back to the tribal village of their ancestors for wives and husbands in an endless array of arranged marriages. Muslims in Germany still openly state that they should not have to integrate, and consider it an affront, if not outright harassment, in being asked nicely to do so. Such sentiments are also on display from Muslim youths who have been born in Germany, speak German, work in German jobs, accept German welfare, refuse to return to their Muslim country of generational origin, yet accuse everyone else of being racist to them. Consider this for a moment. People born in the West, with parents also born in the West, still see themselves as having more in common with people from their ancestors' genetic homeland who speak no English, have never worked in a paying job, have minimal rural schooling, have only ever lived in a tribal village of ancient customs, than they do a local Western-born person of the same genetic lineage who may live next door. It's quite astonishing. Some say they do not want to integrate into Western society and see the West as morally, culturally and spiritually inferior. They perceive they have nothing in common with Western society or its values, so why integrate with members of an inferior culture? But it goes further than this. The technical, legal and economic achievements of the West, which must surely demonstrate an effective form of economic organisation that deserves recognition, if not admiration, is seen as merely a result of rapacious Western theft, thus completely undeserving of respect and therefore without any merit. Western-funded bodies such as the United Nations and Western tax-exempt NGOs, along with much of Western academia and Western media, strongly and actively encourage such a negative view of the West, which gives the impression to non-Westerners of self-destructive moral degeneracy. Why join a culture and integrate with a culture that seems to hate itself? Why indeed? Western technical superiority and wealth over the last 250 or so years is seen as, and is represented by many, and even Westerners themselves, as an aberration or a byproduct of oppressive colonialism, and not part of any ingenuity or any set of achievements or organisational capacities specific to the West. NGOs and the United Nations field operatives openly teach third world people you should go to the West, illegal or not, to take back what those white devils have stolen from all you black and brown folks. Western wealth is yours anyway. You are only taking back what is rightfully yours. It is a powerful siren song to an illiterate peasant or a cunning third world opportunist. It is therefore unthinkable and utterly intolerable that Westerners may see themselves as being superior in any way to other races, and it's time Westerners are put in their place and accept the superiority, moral and otherwise, of other cultures. Many migrants posit the West is in terminal decline, so why not take what we can before the ship sinks completely? A mouth-frothing willingness to take Western financial handouts and migrate, legally or not, to the Western welfare states aside, the West is seen by some as a culture whose brief and undeserving time has passed, and one which is destined for the trash can of history. It is truly remarkable how quickly the West has gone from hero to zero on a global basis. It has happened within a single generation. Newspapers and journals from regions of the world that venerated the West 25 years ago now openly sneer, scoff, deride and mock. Western demise is openly prognosticated and celebrated with anticipatory enjoyment. Western businessmen who were recently feted and treated with the utmost respect are today kept waiting outside offices for hours by relatively mid-level managers and told to deal with snot-nosed juniors, as the more important people, the more important brown people that is, have better things to do, and Western businessmen are often pointedly shown atrocious bad manners and casual disregard. All this is somewhat an overplayed show that demonstrates the West just doesn't have the moral commercial clout anymore. Western internal institutions such as, but by no means confined to academia, parts of the body politic and Western NGOs routinely condemn their own country and their own citizens as viciously as those who purport to hate the West and all it stands for. Yet for all this hate, they are desperate to come to the West as migrants. Nationalistic journals across the third world routinely prognosticate and celebrate how brown people will soon be in the majority in most Western nations. And then it will be they who will be asking the questions and they who will be making the policies. Does this mean all whites are destined to the same fate as, say, South African whites and white farmers? But returning to the Western migrant assimilation issue, it's come to this. The peoples of the West must either accept social racial division as a normal state of affairs, where only whites can be social transgressors, or accept independent ethno-states within the Western polities, each with a racially based virtual self-government, or reduce immigration intake to, say, 0.15% of the existing total population, and only for the most qualified people in an effective auction of skills for migration, or make integration acceptance to Western values as a mandatory requirement for immigration, such as preferring English-speaking Christians with suburban college-educated background and non-recognition of things like imported brides and imported husbands or arranged marriages. Or for workers who do not wish to integrate into the society but do genuinely seek work and have skills in temporary short supply, they can receive, say, a 2 or 3 year work visa with non-recognition of any marriage or child born as a result of any union during that time. Also, implement a repatriation to country of origin policy for any who do not meet an integration standard within a specified time frame and require a bond to be paid before entry. Or perhaps just dismantle all borders and immigration standards, initiating a free-for-all global movement of people without any restrictions whatsoever. It's a lot to think about. Regardless, if no action is taken, within 30 years whites will be a minority in all of the white nations on the planet, while other races will all still be in the majority in their own racial enclaves. Whites, and only whites, will be displaced. Keep in mind these policies of white displacement and the organisations that condemn anyone who questions mass migration and condemns them as a fascist and a bigot are all approved and voted for by mainly white heterosexual males in your parliaments who use your taxes to fund nearly all the groups who spread anti-Western, anti-male, anti-white hatred. They are using your taxes for you to be displaced and condemned in your own country. Perhaps by softening the Western populations up for long enough and using your taxes to do it, when the final ignominy arrives, no one will notice or not have the energy or the will to resist, or maybe they just won't care at all. If anyone wants to see the fate that awaits whites in such a future, just look at Zimbabwe and South Africa. Other than those whites at the apex of international finance, the future will probably be rather unpleasant for the rest. Write to your congressman or local parliamentarian, make it clear. If they don't stop this mass and assimilated migration, you will vote them out of office, and will continue to do so until you, the voters, are listened to and your concerns are fully addressed. If not you, the people, who will ask the questions? Thank you for listening to Tacitus Today, your Pushback channel. We hope you find this essay informative.